Okay, are we on the air? I hope somebody's watching out there. Okay, we start off with one rule tonight. Nobody passes out during class. We got to cover this territory and we're not going to quitting early. If you pass out in class, we're just going to slide you over in the pew and go right on, okay? I said that just in case Walter's watching tonight, but glad you're all here this evening. It's been a beautiful day, beautiful day. I think it's supposed to be a little cooler tomorrow, but I tell you what, maybe we'll pay for it later in some way or another, but I tell you what, you can give me a lot of days like this. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with that. Okay. I was trying to think, don't have any great announcements to make this evening. I apologize. I thought about, I usually send you out a notice of email on Wednesdays, and I was going to pick Paul up, and I got home and I thought, oh, I forgot to send out the email. Or just before I left, I thought, oh, I forgot to send you an email. I thought, well, I didn't have anything to tell you that you didn't already know, so pretend I did, okay? Pretend I didn't forget, and we'll get along with that. And Jenny Lou, don't write it down that I did it again, okay? Well, Chris just contacted me today. He's still kind of coughing, wheezing. Doctor wanted him to have another chest x-ray is what Chris said, and said he'd talked his dad into it. I don't know whether they went today or they're scheduling one. I didn't get that far with him, but Roger, he thinks he's doing better, so hopefully he's getting over that. We've got some others dealing with COVID problems and other viruses out there. It's that time of year, and it's just a struggle. We'll hope everybody does well. Yes.
And he sent me a text that he's doing fine. He said Jane's at that grumpy stage now.
Now, wait a minute. You said Larry sent a text that he's doing fine, but Jane is at that grumpy stage now. I don't remember that being a part. I don't remember that being a part of the COVID symptoms. Oh, yeah, it is. Okay. Yeah, it probably is. Well, we hope she does well and continues to that she gets better. If she's getting grumpier, she's getting more back to normal.
She said she was
Beginning to feel better. Good. Very good.
Mary said the same thing.
Okay. Mary had said the same thing. So we'll hope that everybody that's dealing with that virus or any other is getting better in the days ahead. Okay. Any other announcements we need to make before we have a prayer this evening? Yes, ma'am. Okay. Okay. Okay, Roy's mother, and she's been having a lot of trouble, but I know there's been some difficulties there, and okay, they've called in hospice to help care for her at this point. Okay, all right. Keep Roy and his family and his mother in your prayers and everything. Okay. Anything else? Well, let's take a minute. Let's have a prayer together, and then we'll get into lesson 7 of Philemon. And I'll tell you something else after the prayer anyway. Okay. Let's bow for that prayer. Father and God in heaven, again, we look to you, depend on you. We are amazed when we just think about things, just watching the day and the weather and the setting of the sun this evening, Father. It just amazes us, the marvelous things that are about us in your creation. And even as we see ourselves in the marvelous way that you have made us, Father, we are overwhelmed and we can't even imagine the mind that's there, but we know you care about us, you love us, you've given your Son for us. And Father, we trust you in all things. And help us to be the people you need us to be. Help us to be conscious of these things on a regular basis. Be with our loved ones. We mentioned some here this evening, Father, that we know are dealing with struggles of health, and we pray that the recovery may be swift for those, whether it's of the COVID virus or something else at hand. And we do pray that we can be at our best for them and help them where we can be of aid. Help us to see it and help us have the courage to apply that and do the things that need to be done. And now, Father, as we endeavor to study together, help us to put into practice the things that we study, but help us to be open of mind and heart, and may the things that we share together always be a benefit to one another. And it is in Jesus we pray. Amen. Okay, we're looking at one verse this evening, verse 21. Actually, I accidentally included it with our last session last week, but verse 21 is the one we're going to look at this evening and try to draw some lessons from that as we continue to look at Philemon. Actually, I believe next week is the final lesson in Philemon, if I remember right. I think there were only 8 of the lessons that I put together for this, so I should have that in front of me, but I don't have it in front of me, but I believe there were 8 of them. Is that correct? Thank you, sir. I actually got some, Jenny Lou, I got one right. Put that on the list too. Okay. But in all seriousness, and by next week I will have a box or something for you, and if you have a suggestion of a particular subject you'd like to look at, I'd like it to be, if it could be just a simple question or a verse or something like that that we could look at in a one-session setting, if possible. That's good. Some just naturally will take more. I understand. I don't want you to hesitate. But if you say, I'd like for us to do a full study of the Holy Spirit or something like that, well, that's more than a one-night thing, and we could do that another time. But I'd like some of the other things this time, if you possibly can. If you've got something you want us to study in the future, you can put that in there too as well. But I'll have you a box next week, but I'm in there, and from there we'll move forward with that, okay? This evening we look at verse 21 of Philemon, and we call this one, have confidence, but challenge with trust. And I think you can see that when we read the verse that's before us. He says, having confidence in your obedience, I write to you, knowing that you will do even more than I say. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward verse in that regard, but it conveys several thoughts, and I want us to think about those as best we can this evening. I came across this quote, and I don't know exactly where I got it, but I had this quote, and somebody else might know who Marianne Williamson is. I don't. I don't necessarily always like to quote people that I don't know who they are, but sometimes you like a good quote. And her quote was this: you are a child of God. You playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure about you. We were born to manifest the glory of God that is within us. And basically, in essence, I like that quote with this because Paul is saying to Philemon, I want you to do what you're supposed to do. And kind of where this quote comes from. Don't hesitate. Don't hold back. Don't fear that you're putting yourself out there too big in front of people. I still like my mother's old quote, he that tooteth not his own horn, the same shall not be tooted. I don't know where she got that, but I like it and all. But she was always the one to motivate me. So well, go out there and show them what you know. Well, okay, we'll give it a try, you know. But sometimes we're a little bit hesitant. Maybe it's a sense of false humility or something. But in this case, Paul is telling Philemon, I really want you to do what you're supposed to do. I don't know, I was just thinking, and I put on your sheets of paper, confidence is almost natural. We want to be confident, but the lack of it, when we are not confident, is a death knell to just about anything we do. So, with that in mind, we'll look at what Paul has to say here. And if you want to think about confidence, where do we get it? How do we come up with confidence? Usually, we get it from other people or just from experience. Generally, experience gives us confidence. If you've done something, you feel like you can do it again. Maybe you can do a little bit more. This is the athlete that thinks if I can jump so high, maybe I can jump a little bit higher or whatever it is. If I can run that fast, maybe I can run just a little bit faster or something. We're always trying to compete with ourselves, but there is experience says you can do this, therefore you can do it again. Yes, sir. Absolutely, and I appreciate you saying that because when I said experience in this, I appreciate you throwing it in because I say that includes all the things you learn, whether it's from books or action or teachers or whatever it might be, but that does tie in also to what you hear from trusted sources. That's the other place that confidence comes from. If you've got a teacher that you admire, you might think more seriously about what that teacher has to say or an example of somebody that's important to you. You know, sometimes as parents, we feel like our words fall empty on our children, but, you know, statistics tell us that the greatest influence on children is actually the parents. And in a lot of respects, sometimes we feel like everything we say, it just goes kind of in the proverbial one ear and out the other. Yeah, it just passes by. And a lot of it does at times. But isn't it interesting? And if you think in your own life, you probably recognize the things that I heard as a child, even the things I didn't like, maybe that parents or somebody else said. I catch myself saying or acting as I get older in life as well, you know. So anyway, those are the two primary areas, and Blue is exactly right. Some of it is from your direct study and growth. We learn things, and however we learn them, and generally you don't get them by osmosis, but that's with your head on a pillow, you know. But we do get them by the doing of things, or from people who already do those things. Of course, you can go to Hebrews. I started to say go back to Hebrews. Actually, in the Bible, Hebrews is the next book up. But you can go to the 11th chapter and finally to the 12th chapter when it says we've got all these encouragers around us. So that's that idea when I say, where does confidence come from? And you think about that, we use these in the landscape of politics and really at every level in life, I think. We find both of these in play all of the time, experience and testimony, that learning that gives us that kind of confidence and all. I don't know whether you ever stop in your life and think about, in what am I truly confident? Do you ever stop and think, in what things do I have great confidence? You know, actually, probably more than you consider. Some of them are very simple, very small. You have the confidence you can take the next step. Many of you drove here this evening. You probably had confidence when you got in your car and you drove here, or as you drive home, you have confidence that you could do that. Or you have confidence in whoever brought you or whatever. The only confidence that you're probably lacking has to do with the guy in front of the class tonight. Go ahead, Baloo.
One of your favorite verses, 1 John 5:13.
Yes, I've written these things to you that you might know. That's right. That's very good. Confidence is there. And that's what John was trying to get across. I want you to know that you have life in him and so forth. So very good, very good. Well, as we think about it and how we develop confidence, and what comes early in our lives usually comes a little bit more easily as children. But sometimes as we're talking about as adults, confidence isn't quite as easy to develop. We've had time to become perhaps a little bit more cynical or doubtful, or we've had enough setbacks, enough failures. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to hit this. Failures and so forth in life that we don't grab hold of confidence as quickly as we probably could or maybe even should. But the one thing that crossed my mind is the loss of confidence usually takes only one thing. Just one bad word, one negative comment, one criticism. You know, you might have 100 positive things being said, but then that one criticism, that will bring you down. You know, you've done something and you think, okay, and people come by and say, it's marvelous, great, you did a wonderful job. Oh, that's wonderful. Oh, it's beautiful, or whatever it is. And then the one person says, yeah, but, and you go, oh, man. Confidence becomes lacking in that regard, in that. Or the other is that you just get no response whatsoever. You know, some of you are real fans of social media and all. I know you all look like real social media hounds right now. Anyway, I know some of you are really active on social media, and you put something out there on social media. How do you feel when nobody clicks on it? Nobody puts a like on it. They don't put a dislike, but nobody puts a like on it. You say, oh, man. I don't know what that feels like, but, because everything I ever do, people just go, oh, that's what, no. I'm not a social media person, as most of you know, not very much so. But a lack of response. Of course, I think about, that always makes me think about those words that Jesus shared, and I think he's probably drawing from an old proverb or something there. I can't prove that, but in Matthew 11, when he said, you know, we played the flute for you and you didn't dance. We mourned to you and you didn't weep. How in the world are we going to get anything across? You don't seem to respond to anything that we do. Sounds like a preacher's life, man. But no, in all seriousness, that's what I think about. And sometimes that can really bring you down, really lack in confidence, or really bring down your confidence to it. It becomes very lacking in that regard. Anything anybody wants to say about confidence in general up to this point, and then we'll talk about what he says here. Yes, ma'am.
Your confidence will also come from your personal scars. You can have all the
Okay.
confidence in the world, but if someone knocks down one little thing, you react to it differently than the person sitting next to you does.
Okay, yeah.
In this book, it's such a simple, compact book.
Right.
We know that God inspired it to be there for a reason. And there's so many lessons to tell us about forgiveness, trust, remembering what we know, what we learn, and to continue to learn. It's a powerful book.
You're exactly right. The things that have come our way, the scars and everything we have, are great learning tools to help us with our confidence. And if you've overcome this, and each person, as you say, is going to be affected differently, you're going to have to quit sitting by that guy. Everyone is going to respond differently. You're going to be a little different than the person next to you. And this, like you said, this is a great book for picking up on those things, because each of these little lessons throughout it is great. Anything else you want to add at this point? Yes, sir.
Can too much confidence be harmful or negative?
You know, that's a very good question. Could too much confidence be harmful or negative? It can lead you to arrogance or lead you to believe you can do things that you shouldn't or couldn't do.
Other people may see you as arrogant or,
Very good. I think about somebody like Nebuchadnezzar when you say that, you know, and at times he realized how great God was and his dependence on God, and then other times he looks out over Babylon and he says, look what I've done, how great I am. You know, and that gets pretty easy. Even Moses had a little struggle with that, and he was a very humble man. He struggled with that because when it talks about he was supposed to speak to the rock the second time getting water, and this time he struck the rock. But if you listen or read the words that he says, basically he says we, and he's associating himself along with God in that regard. So that kind of confidence can be a false confidence that you have, and it may lead you to do or say things you shouldn't have said along the way. And I think most of us can look in our own histories and find times of thinking, you know, I really shouldn't have said that. You know, that sounded pretty full of myself in that regard. And I don't know. Anyway, very good. Usually we've got somebody around to help bring us down, though, so there we go. All right. Anything else in that? Nobody else has any confidence here today. Okay, very good. No, you guys are great. All right, let's look at what he's saying. His point of confidence here. Notice what he says in this verse that he says to Philemon. Notice he said, because we notice he says having confidence. Verse 21, having confidence. It's an existing thing. It's not just a one moment. It didn't just arrive. It's not, I hope to have confidence. It is an existing situation. When he says having confidence, so this is something that's already been built that goes along with the idea, the experience, the testimony, the trust, the learning that goes into that. Having confidence, so it is something that's existing. He goes further to say, knowing that you will do. He says, knowing, it is a confirmed confidence. And he's stating it out loud. I know that you will do. It's not like, I hope you will do. I want to believe you will do. You know, what is it parents often say? They say, are we going to do that? Maybe. What does maybe mean? Probably not. Never, it's not going to happen, not going to happen. Did you say something, Carrie? Oh, what? Usually means no, okay. You know, this is a knowing. It is a confirmed thing. We know it. And that goes, you said 1 John 5:13. Again, one of those, my favorites and all. And I think that's such a great verse. But it is, I know this. This is an absolute in mind. Knowing this is something that he shares with him already. And it is something that he is personally expressing. He says, I write to you. Notice this. This is not about other people. This is not other involvements and so forth. This is, I am writing this to you. This is between you and me. It makes it a very personal thing. Don't you love it when somebody comes along and they say, Jenny Lou, people are saying this about you, but no, I want to say about it. Yes, ma'am, you had your hand up. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that confidence maybe that he has is from prior experience with others.
It's evident that he's got some, yes.
Success and experience gives you confidence for the next project.
You're exactly right. They have well, if you go back to the very beginning of this, that they've tread the same ground here. Fellow laborer, he says. They share some things in common, so they probably have worked together. They know each other well enough. And other things that he says here, you're right on track with that, I think. And so he can say it, and he's unafraid to say it very plainly to him at this point. Excuse me. And then it is personal. It's between the two of them, very personal. And it is a confidence in actions. I'm confident you will do. And notice how he says that. I'm confident you will do, even more than I said, but I'm confident that you will do. Not, I hope you'll do, I want you to do, I'd like to believe you can. I have confidence in you, and if you can, do it. He says, I'm confident you'll do it. You know, isn't that a nice thing when you know that you can walk away or you can just say, I know he'll take care of it. It's done. It's done. I know you do it. Think about how many people or how few people you have so much confidence in them. You can say, oh, I'm sure they'll take care of it. It's done. Probably the list is not that long. I mean, compared to a lot of things, the list is not that long. And it probably is more people that are very close to you than it is people, especially, it's probably, you talk about people you elect to office. You may be excited about the vote, but are they going to do exactly what you think they're going to do? Do we have that kind of confidence? Not always. I won't speak for you. I'll let you think about that. Anyway, but it is a confidence in actions. Not only that you'd hear it, you'll understand it, but you will do. And then it is a confidence of respect. By that I mean Philemon will obey. He has a respect for Paul. Has a respect for Paul. I think I've told you before, one of the nicest things a guy ever said to me, boy, that would tell you something if it was the nice. And one of the nice things that somebody ever said to me is, I went to a guy and asked him to drive the church van to pick up the widows, or people that needed a ride. It wasn't all widows. There was a blind guy on there too. I don't think he was a widow. But they would pick up some of the people that needed a ride on the church van that we had, and I needed a driver. Whoever was driving couldn't drive, and I went to him, and he said, well, I wasn't going to drive anymore, and there were reasons why, but he said, because you asked me to, I'll do it tonight. Now, at first I thought, oh man, that's sad, and then later I thought, well, that speaks well of our relationship, that person is willing to do because of who it was that asked. And you think about that. There are people for whom you will do something that for somebody else, you might not do it. And I think Paul said something along that line, didn't he? For a righteous man or for a good man, and he made a differentiation there. You go back and think about that in Romans 5 and the idea, it might be a righteous, we would consider a person, a good law-abiding citizen, some, you do some things, but for a good person, you might even dare to die. So there's the thought, but he's of course pointing out that Christ would do it for us, even though we are not worth that in terms of righteousness or goodness. And it is a respect for Paul, your obedience, he says, and that word obedience means an authority, and somebody responds to it. And then finally, it is a reasonable confidence. He says, I have confidence in you that you'll do this, but actually, I believe you're going to do more than I would even ask. I'm not asking you at the limit. You think about some of the things that we do in life when we get into bargaining positions. He's not really bargaining with Philemon, but when you're bargaining, you usually shoot high and come back down. It's like you're going to go buy a used car, the person, they're going to try to get you to pay the highest price they can get out of you. You're going to try to aim for the lowest price, and usually you're going to come back somewhere in between there, I guess. I don't know. Maybe we don't do that anymore, but that was typically the way you did, and you kind of work your way into this. In this case, here's what I want, but I have confidence you'll do even more than that. That tells us something about them and about their relationship, and really having confidence, but he's challenging him with a trust that he has in him. Thoughts or anything about that at this point? God? No?
This also points out Paul's confidence in himself.
Oh,
Because
good.
he's already told him that he's confident he could order him to do this, and he would do it earlier in Philemon, and now
Good.
he's coming back using the word obedience. Paul's got a lot of confidence in his own authority and his expectation that he should be obeying.
Okay.
So we're seeing confidence on both.
Very good. Very good thought. I appreciate that very much. A very good thought. Paul had confidence in himself, in his position, his authority, and yet using it in this way. I didn't say it nearly as well as you did, but it says a lot about his confidence there. Not only his confidence in Philemon, but his confidence in who he is and what he has and how he can manage that as an apostle, as a preacher, and all of that and everything. Very good. Yes, yes. And so which really brings in the point, it's hard to have confidence in somebody else if you don't have confidence in yourself. Yes, sir.
They both have the same desires for the kingdom.
Oh.
Their goals.
Okay. They have a shared desire for the kingdom. They both have that desire for the betterment of the kingdom in this. And with that, you can go a lot further if you know you share that common ground in that regard. Good, good. Anything else? All right, look at the way he refers to him and the fuel for his confidence, and we've already hit some of this. He calls him a fellow friend or beloved friend. Some of the translations put in it, some of them say fellow friend. To Philemon, our beloved friend and fellow laborer. He is a friend and he is a laborer, that they have this common and this shared ground in that regard. This is the fuel for the confidence. It's not just, I know you're going to do it. It is, we've shared this. We have a relationship. And where you have relationship, confidence comes so much more readily, becomes much more available because you know the person so well. You know what you can do. You know what you can expect the person to do. You know when to speak, when not to speak. There is a confidence, and that's confidence in self, as Nancy points out, and a confidence in people as other, and all. And he continues to, in this, and we'll come to that later, is that he identifies people with whom they both share relationships and so forth. And so there is a lot to be said that comes a little bit later, and we'll get into the next lesson. So confidence is especially when expressed, is an encouragement, and it truly is a motivational tool when somebody says, I believe in you. Not just I believe in the cause, I believe in you. What kind of trust that is that people place in you. I often think about Of course, when we're little children, we'll sit in the back seat of a car, and I think how many times I sat in the back seat of my father's car, and I just thought he was probably the best driver in the world. So I got older, I found out he wasn't as good as I thought he was, but no, he was a good driver and so forth. But a child can sit and sleep in a car. What does that say? They're tired. But it says, I trust the people with whom I'm riding. I think we have to accept that. And of course, primary trust or confidence goes to God. Anyway, into the thoughts of that, and we'll address some questions at hand. Oh man, I still fell behind. I need to just quit doing that because I fall behind in this. Sorry about that, but you got it on paper in front of you. Why don't I give this to you, Josh, and let you do it for me, okay? Man, what's the deal? That's why they don't let me do that on Sunday morning. We'd never get through the lesson because I'd forget to hit the button along the way. Okay, look at questions. What would be an apt description of the relationship? Just a good synopsis description of the relationship that we can conclude has existed between Paul and Philemon. What would be a quick description? Yeah, he uses the term fellow laborers, and that really covers pretty well, doesn't it? Yeah. But sometimes you can work side by side with somebody, but you just don't like them that much. But in this case, it did.
They had a deep respect for each other, not wanting that Philemon would free Onesimus, but to accept him in the love of Christianity.
Okay. A deep respect for one another, and it tied into that love for Christianity that he knew Philemon had. That was, and all. Truly, a true definition of brothers in Christ. You know, we may use that term loosely sometimes just because somebody is a Christian, but these guys, you get the idea, they really did have that kind of brotherly relationship. Yes, ma'am.
Well, Paul at this point was totally reliant on Philemon because Paul was in prison.
Okay. Yeah, and that's a good thing to remember, that Paul was in prison at this point, and he's dependent on Philemon doing this of his own accord or his own will and everything, even though, as you point out, there is that positioning. I mean, he's an apostle and so forth, and he can, as he says, I can use that, but he's really relying on that Philemon to do what he knows Philemon will do. Did I see another hand? No? Yeah? No? Well, those are all good. I didn't have anything particular in mind when I put it out there, but I just think that we need to note that there was a strong tie, and that goes back to several things that we've said already. All right, what makes us think that Philemon, outside of Paul's words, how about that? What makes us think Philemon felt the same about Paul as Paul felt about Philemon? What makes you think that? I mean, Philemon doesn't say anything here. Well, I say outside of Paul's words, but we can't go to anything besides his words in this hardly. Something we're going to come, go ahead. Okay. You just, things like that don't just hang out there. They have meaning from the beginning. Otherwise, the rest of this is wasted time. Okay? I think you got to know that Philemon is going to accept this in a very loving way. If you've ever been put in that position where you've got to go speak to somebody that you know has real animosity toward you, that is really difficult. You know, I've walked into a hospital room or two before, knowing that the person I was going to see didn't really think very highly of me, and it's kind of challenging. You know what to say, but and I even talked to some of you who can't stand the sight of me, but then go ahead. Go ahead.
Based upon some of the people he mentioned,
Okay, very good.
have probably given Paul a report that
Okay,
the way he felt.
okay.
Now, that's still just taking Paul's word.
Right, we're going to come to that a little bit more, but you're exactly right. They mentioned he mentions these common people that know each of them, and they're going to share these things together. And something else that we're going to come to is, notice as he ends the thing, he says, well, he's already said, I know you'll do more than I ask. But notice he says, okay, and I'm going to come see you. You got a bed ready for me? You know, is my room ready for me? You know, come on, let's go. I think it's pretty easy to see in the way that Paul says what he says, that he has every confidence that Philemon feels about him the same way, in much the same way he feels about Philemon. Okay. Try number 3, beyond your immediate family. In whom would you consider to have the level of confidence that we see expressed here in this letter? Beyond your immediate family, where do you have that kind of confidence? Okay, we'd like to believe that we have it in one another, don't we? But sometimes even in the church we struggle with it. But I think generally it's going to be people with whom you share the most common ground, and the most important common ground, I should say. The most important common ground. And that's why you mentioned the church, Christ, and our lives and so forth. That's who it's going to be. But even then, we sometimes kind of struggle to get it to where we want it to be. My whole point in asking that question was to express that it's hard to find people with whom you have that much confidence. People that you feel free to express yourself, you can be open, and just kind of lay it down. I was talking to some friends a couple of months or so ago. We get together every year, and we've covered a lot of ground together over the years and everything. And I said, why are we able to do this way? Well, I said, we've got a lot of common ground. And that's the place where you can kind of just figuratively let your hair down, take off your shoes, and be who you are, you know. And that's what we're talking about here. Where is it that you can truly be who you are without having to put up any kind of facade, pretense, or anything like that? You know how it is at home. If I come in at the end of the day, I know when my wife's had a bad day. She's not going to pretend to have had a good day. I can tell when she's had a bad day. Now, she can't with me, but I wish. Every now and then I get this, well, things not go well at work today. You have a problem today? I said, what do you mean? She acts like I might be grumpy sometimes. Can you believe that? I don't believe that at all. But you know what I mean. In all seriousness, we see each other in that best light. And that's where confidence is really built, when we know that kind of honesty and that common ground is shared. Okay, number 4. Obedience generally carries with it a force or superior power. How does that fit within a relationship of confidence like this one? Can you?
It goes to your comment relative to shared experience.
Okay.
If you have that superior kind of relationship with someone, if that person has been supportive and all of that kind of thing in that superior position, then you have confidence in them.
Very good.
That's the same way, the superior, if you're someone that works for them and you constantly perform, then they have confidence in you. So that's a part of shared experience.
Okay, I like that. I like that. That time and that shared experience, and I think if I could add into that as well, because I think you're right on track as you see that, and you see what kind of person it is that is your superior and how they respond to you, and then you see the worker, how that worker responds to you. But it's also that idea, I'm here with you the whole way. I'm here with you. That's the employee that's there. I'm not there, 9 to 5. I'm there whatever the time takes. I'm there. And that's the boss that says, I'm going to roll up my sleeves and I'm going to be right here beside you and do whatever we need to do. And you've got the support system in place. Doing the right thing. Okay. You have the same relationship in a unilateral relationship? Okay, where one is not superior to the other. Okay, I was having a little trouble when you started that. Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. My thinker is not that fast. You're too far ahead of me. But yeah, that is true. That is true. You betcha. It can be the same when you're on the same level as well. Absolutely. Okay, short of writing an epistle, what are some ways we can show confidence, that we have confidence in the people around us? Okay, success, yeah, and acknowledging success. Say, I know. Doesn't it come also into trusting them to do exactly what you believe they'll do, and letting them do it? Very good. Do you know I call my older sister the micromanager? I was putting a ceiling fan in my parents' house quite a number of years ago. I was hanging a new ceiling fan in the den my mother had bought and wanted me to put up, so I'm putting it up there. After I'd electrocuted myself 3 times, I still was getting it up there. And my older sister came in, and she's standing down there. She says, now if you'll do so-and-so. I said, how many fans have you put in? And she said, well, and I said, go away. No, actually, I didn't say go away. She said, okay, I guess you know what you're doing, don't you? Sometimes, no micromanaging. That was my sister and me, and anyway, bless her heart. I still love her in spite of herself. But by allowing people to do, giving them the latitude to do what they need to do and how they do it. Sometimes in the church, we want to, especially from leadership position, we tend to want to micromanage far too much because it's just natural. It's just easy to do, and we want things done a certain way. It can be tough to allow people the freedom not to do, but it gives confidence. Marty.
I think even taking that maybe a little bit further is asking people to do things that they haven't normally done.
Oh, okay. Asking them to do things they have not ordinarily done, entrusting it to them in that way, and kind of gives them a challenge and says, I believe in you. Wow, that's pretty good, Okay. Anything else? Yes, sir.
The level of importance of things that you entrust them with.
Okay. The kinds of things, the level of importance of the things you entrust them with. Very good.
You can measure the amount of confidence somebody has in someone by the things that they ask them to do or they entrust them to do.
Okay. Very good. Well, this one the next question really quickly, and then we're about out of time, I think, kind of tails onto that pretty well. As it says, how does doing no more than we are asked to do affect this confidence? It does kind of put limits on things, doesn't it? Yes, you're right. Puts a barrier around there. So, well, I know what you will do, but now I know what you won't do, and I definitely can't say you'll do more than I ask you to do, but it kind of puts that barrier out there. In a way, it identifies, and there is a kind of confidence that we might have. Say, well, I know exactly what this person is going to do. I know exactly what this person is not going to do. But the kind of confidence we're talking about here is a relational confidence that says, I can just lay it out for you and trust, and I know that you will take care of it. Rather than having to, you're talking about micromanaging, rather than having to detail and say, here's exactly how you have to do it. Can I tell you about my mother-in-law? We had a 2-door car for quite a number of years, and the bucket seats in the front, you said, 2 bucket seats in the front. They were tall bucket seats in the front of the car. If you sat in the back seat, it was really hard to see over the driver's seat. And my mother-in-law had to sit in the back seat at one time. And she said, I don't like sitting back here. I said, you get car sick? I said, no, it's not about getting car sick, but I can't see where we're going. I said, well, do you need to see exactly where we're going? She said, well, how can I know whether you're getting there right or not? Maybe I exaggerated just a little bit in that, but don't tell her I told that. Anyway, in all seriousness, sometimes well, anyway, I just leave it at that. We draw boundaries on what we allow or expect people to be and to do, rather than expressing broad comment. I know you'll take care of it and you'll do everything that is right. Let me add one quick thought, and I know our time is up and I've run over, but the one other thought that I would add is consider your confidence in God. If this teaches us any lessons, it ought to teach about our confidence in God. Do we believe we've got to tell God every detail of what he needs to do, or do we trust him to do what's right? Something for you to think about. Maybe something for you to pray about tonight. Anyway, okay, very good. Thank you all very much for being here. We didn't get to the last one. You can take that home and think about it yourself, okay?